Hey everyone, James Labrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast. I am your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. We are live at those four locations every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, please click that like button, click the subscribe button, and as always, smash that notification bell so that you are notified every single time that we go live. If you'd like to catch video replays of the show, check out our YouTube channel or the YouTube channel of the CMS Network. And if you'd like to download audio versions of the show, just Google Talking into Infinity Podcast. And do not forget, if you would like to join us on screen as a co-host during the discussion, just click tii.cmspn.com and it'll take you right into our green room and we can bring you onto the show live. Or jump in the chat and do it that way, either way. So without further ado, let's bring my very good friend Brian on. What's going on, man? How's everything going?
What time did we get home?
Oh, God.
Did I just get home 5 minutes ago? It feels like.
Yeah, it was pretty late. It was, God, what was it? Because the show was over at like 11:30.
Well, let's first of all backtrack. What did we do last night?
Well, we were in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, and we went to see Torre, Marty Friedman, and Queensryche. So that was our adventure last night, and it was a fun time. It was a fun time. You were late, so I was driving around killing time.
I was not late.
You were late, my friend. You were late.
15 minutes. Plus, I told you that before, so that's not late.
You're an idiot, man. Take off work next time. I got out of work at noon. I was just driving around.
Dude, we still had 2+ hours to kill before the show.
Yeah, well, thank God, too, because that food took a while. We'll get to that. But
oh, my gosh.
Chastity Crawley is checking in. Good to see you, Chastity. Thanks for tuning in. She says, hello, everyone. Yeah, so we should have a guest calling in and who went to a different show a week ago. So our good friend Robert Husted is supposed to be calling in. So we'll talk to him real soon. But before we get to him, we hit the road yesterday at, like 4 o'clock or something.
Yes.
And headed out east through the shitty Pennsylvania mountains. And so that was a good time. It's always fun driving out there. So yeah, we drove about a little less than 2 hours to go see the show.
Yeah, no matter what show I go to outside Pittsburgh, I always feel like I'm in the movie The Deer Hunter, the opening. Like, 'cause that's where all the people are from, like that area that, go off to Vietnam. And I don't know,
Right.
it still looks the same. Like, it's just all those rolling mountain hills and like those super old 19th century houses. And it's like the buildings, like nothing's been updated at all. Like it's like you're
Right.
stuck in like 1967 or something. It's very strange. I don't know. But the venue we were in now, did we follow up on the history of that? I guess they totally gutted that and redid it the inside. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, I saw some pictures of it and it was kind of jacked up. So I mean, it was really gutted, and they went in and man, they made it nice. That was a beautiful venue, man. That was a great place to see a show. I was really impressed with it. So
Yeah, I liked it because it looked like I don't think there's any seating downstairs, but there was balcony seating and like there was plenty of like good places to stand and get a good view if you wanted to stay downstairs.
Yeah. It was kind of funny when we walked in, because we walked in as Trauma was in like their last couple songs, and you went, "Holy shit, I should have brought earplugs." And I said, "Oh no, it'll probably be quieter up in the balcony." No, it was not.
No, not really. I don't think it was quite as bad as when we first walked in, but I must have got used to it. But yeah, I what's the view from the top one, man? I couldn't take that. Was thank God I found earplugs for that one, because
Right?
I'm just to the point now where I probably just better bring them in, because I love to feel it and I love the music loud stuff, but man, I don't want to be like literally hurting or not enjoying the experience, which I was a little scared when we first walked in. But yeah, man, I mean that was quite an interesting bill there. You had like those kind of masters of, I guess, what are they, Bay Area thrash, wherever they come from.
Yeah.
And they sounded like they were still like kind of right out of that early '80s, sort of Exodus, Testament sort of feel to them.
Yeah.
Violence, whatever, those type of bands. They were solid. And then Marty Friedman came on, and you'd seen him at the Grog Shop here, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd seen him twice, and the first time was actually at the Beachland Ballroom, and it was at this point, it was several years ago, but it was right when he had announced, okay, well, I'm coming back and I'm actually doing a U.S. tour. He hadn't done that in forever, so that was pretty cool. So, God, how many years ago was that? It was like 15 or 16, I want to say. But in any case, yeah, I did see him then again at the Grog Shop, and God, I remember seeing him that first time. His band was unfrickin' real, man. I mean, he had this like little Japanese female bass player she couldn't have been 5 feet tall. She was tiny, and she was just tearing it up. And his rhythm guitar player was harmonizing solos with him. His name is Jordan Ziff. He actually ended up in Rat for a minute, taking the Warren DeMartini position. And then his drummer, this guy Chargy, holy shit, man. That guy was amazing. And then the second time I saw him, it was a smaller venue. The Grog Shop holds 200 people or something, and it's a low ceiling. And Chargy literally was hanging from the rafters. He would stand on his drum kit and grab the rafters and start swinging back and forth, man, like it was a jungle gym. The guy is unbelievable. So as soon as I saw that Queensryche was touring and they announced Marty Friedman as the opening act, I was like, oh hell yeah.
Yep.
So, and I've been like pimping out how great he is to everybody. So I was praying that all of a sudden that it wasn't like one of those situations where I just happened to catch two really good shows, and it's not an indication of how he is all the time. And thankfully that was not the case, man, because I know it was pretty cool, because I saw you like really getting into it right off the bat. I was like, okay, this is good. And I texted my wife this. I said people are really loving it, because it was that cheering that was like, when somebody hasn't seen something,
right?
And it's that, holy shit, this is amazing. It was that kind of cheer. So it was, man, oh man. And God, he was just ripping, dude. And I mean, even for like a short set, I thought that he wrote that set so well, and it just played to the crowd. And I mean, what did you think of Marty Friedman?
Yeah, it was good. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I think I was expecting it maybe to be, I don't know, poppy or something, just because he does that J-pop stuff, which I don't even know what that even means. Full disclosure, I think I've heard some of it before, but it was an awesome mix of like metal, blues, rock, and then even that very last song, I have no idea. I think it actually had a Japanese name. I forgot what he called it, but it kind of reminded us. I told you, it sort of reminded me of Happy Song off of Petrucci's solo album. It had sort of that pop punk, drive a melody, cool melody on a rock guitar. And I always love, like, when you see a solo guy like that, if they have a second guitar, too many times, like, that guitar isn't even, like, it's like, is it even turned on,
Yeah.
But his was for sure on. They were doing a lot of cool harmony things. And, and he let him take some solos too. And I like that kind of thing, because if the guy's up there good enough to support you, then he should be good enough to, do some stuff on his own too.
Yeah.
And I want to hear those harmonies in there. And the drummer, man, anytime a drummer constantly gets up there and stands like on, I don't know how those guys do it. Like, they stand on the bass drum and then on the stool. Like, I mean, you and I would topple over and just trying to climb up there in 5 seconds. Like,
I know.
But they're standing up there and they're playing like at the same time. Like
I'm almost positive he's got actual stands that'll support his weight because he was
okay.
He was. I mean, you can't just stand on a drum kit for as long as that guy was doing it. Like it was pretty crazy.
But
man.
even if he did have something like that, just having the balance to just keep doing that like over and over. Like I'm gonna go crazy on a song, then I'm gonna go stand up here and yeah. I thought it was a good opener for Queensryche because you kind of don't want something like totally just balls to the wall metal, like I think having Trauma go first and then putting Friedman, I mean they're probably going to do that anyway just because he's more well known, but I thought that was a decent opener for this version of Queensryche for what they do now at least.
Yep. Well, let's get the opinion of our good friend Robert Husted. What's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you both.
So what did you think of Trauma and Marty Friedman specifically when you saw the show? Where was your show? You went to the Fort Wayne concert, right?
Yeah, I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Clyde Theater.
Okay. So
honestly, so when I first saw it, I was like, oh, Queensryche, tickets, and then I saw like the beginning bands, and for once, I thought Marty Friedman was in the band Trauma. So I was trying to look when Trauma was playing, I'm like, ooh, where's he at? And then once the Trauma was done, then it went to the Marty Friedman band. I said, oh, I'm just dumb and didn't read. But no, honestly, Trauma was really good. I'm not huge into thrash metal, but still, they were just off the walls, just rocking hard.
Yep. Especially I mean, I hate to say oh, those guys are old, but I mean they are. I mean they're late 50s, early 60s if I did my research properly. Like I was saying to Brian before you jumped on, that guy's voice was fucking incredible. I mean he was wailing, man, and it was heavy and it was thrashy. It was cool. And obviously Brian and I were just talking about Chargy, Marty Friedman's drummer. I mean, dude, what was your impression of that guy?
Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure he did some sort of drugs beforehand because I'm there's no way he has that much energy just to go ham on the drums constantly.
Yep. Yeah, that guy is just off the chain, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. So the other thing that was kind of interesting about our show is it was really freaking loud. Was your show blaring like ours was? Because it was. I mean, Brian was right in front of me. We had interesting seats. We had single seats. He was one row in front of me. We were on the aisle, and when I wanted to say something to him, I'm right there. I'm 2 feet from him. I had to lean over and damn near scream into his ear. And I talk loud, so I mean, it was crazy loud. How was it at the venue you saw it at?
I didn't think it was that loud, but also I brought earbuds. Because it's just one of those things where I'm sure, just in case.
Right.
Because at the beginning when Trauma was playing, I'm like, this doesn't seem that loud. And then I took just them both off, said, nope, they're going back in. That's way too loud.
Right. I wonder if it's just the venues we saw it at, or if the sound guy really is cranking that up. I liked it actually. I thought it sounded phenomenal. I think you lost a little bit of bass guitar. I mean, I know in our mix, Brian, what did you think? I thought we missed a little bit of the bass guitar, but.
Yeah, maybe. I was curious if we'd been down on the floor. If we could hear that a little better because you're down there, actually on the wooden floor itself. Rather up in the concrete balcony, like that. But yeah, I mean the mix was. I thought the mix was pretty good for as loud as it was. It could have been way worse, obviously.
Yeah.
But everything cut through pretty good. I mean it would have been cool maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little more low end, just clear that up a little bit. But I don't know if again. When those speakers are hanging like that and we're way up high up like that, I don't know, can you really feel much bass if you're up there like that anyway? Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes.
So what do you guys prefer to show? Do you prefer if it's a little too loud or if it's a little too quiet? I know it's weird to say, but I kind of prefer if it's a little too loud because if it's quiet, I get pissed off. I'm I could listen to it at this volume in my damn car. I'll never forget going to see Motley Crue. This thing was the late 90s or something. It was one of the first few years after Vince Neil came back. And I'm sitting next to my brother at Quicken Loans Arena here in Cleveland, and we're having a conversation with each other at this level as the concert's going. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Where's the damn volume? So do you guys prefer it that way, or do you prefer it a little bit louder like it was at both the shows we saw with Queensryche?
I personally prefer it louder, just because just you feel that energy from the amps and just like
Yep.
hitting your body, and you're like, yes, let's go.
Yep. I
But yeah.
I just can't listen to it quiet. I mean, Brian, you were talking about bringing like earplugs and stuff, and I know Robert, you said you had some buds in, and I mean, so what about you, Brian? I mean, would you prefer it a little quieter naturally, or
well, what I don't like is if you go somewhere and the guitar doesn't cut through, because this is the main kind of music that you and I listen to, is guitar based, metal based, rock based, and if it's not loud enough and that guitar doesn't cut through, it really loses. You want the vocals to come through too, but you don't want it to be a karaoke type thing, And so I still always think that the guitar is kind of the most important thing for these kind of concerts and this type of music. And when we saw Petrucci, I was a little worried because it's just guitar solo music like that, and it's just a 3-piece or whatever it was. But man, they had that thing. There was no mistaking, that thing was blistering through the PA at House of Blues,
Right.
and that's how you wanted it. It was almost a little too loud for that, but at the same time, it has to cut through like that. So I'll prefer it louder as opposed to, you have to feel it, especially the guitar.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get to the set list. And Robert, I don't know if you remember the set list that you saw, but Brian pulled up the one that we got last night, and I was kind of surprised because there were only 2 songs that I wanted to hear. I knew they were going to play a bunch of stuff off the new record, so I did not get the song that I wanted off the new record, surprisingly. Excuse me. And there was like an album cut they always play that I didn't get either. I was like, okay, that's kind of surprising, but I kind of dug it. Like, so before we go song by song real quick to go through it, I mean, was this your first time seeing Queensryche, first of all, Robert?
Yeah, this is my first time seeing Queensryche.
Okay, so on this tour, they did some really deep cuts, man. It was really cool. So, were you disappointed in the set list you got, or are you familiar enough with the band to be like, okay, I know this song, or was it kind of like, hey, where's like half of Empire and half of Mindcrime? Like,
Actually, no, they played like, I say maybe over half of like what I knew, like off the top of my head. Like, they played some Mindcrime, played some Empire. Some off the new, which they played one of the songs off the new album, which I wanted to hear really badly. So I said, and that was like the first thing they played. I said, yes, this is going to be epic. Let's go.
that's what I was gonna say. Like, Brian, like which one was it that they opened with, Brian? It was
So yeah, behind the walls. Yeah, that must be your favorite too. Yeah, that is just, oh man, I couldn't believe they started with that, but it is a great one to start with, man.
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise. I was like, wow. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw a band not open with the opening track from their new record. And that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
So, and of all the ones that they could open with, I mean, Behind the Walls was a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was. I really like the fact that they dug really deep into the catalog for this tour, because I mean, there's a lot of bands that I've seen a bunch of times that I previously, like, I wouldn't miss if they came around, like Megadeth or Anthrax. And now I'm just like, okay, like I don't go out of my way to see it, because it's like I've seen 95% of the show already so many times. It's not, I'm not going to get like Lone Justice and Gung Ho and all that stuff from Anthrax, like Skeletons in the Closet. Like, no, I'm going to get Indians and Caught in a Mosh and Antisocial. It's like, and then the new record, like, okay, whatever. So I really liked the deep cuts that they played. So go through the set list a little bit, Brian. Robert, if you remember, like, chime in, see if you got what we got.
So yeah, start with Behind the Walls, then Don't Look Back, which I think is the first Torre album.
Yeah.
Then we went to The Warning. We got back to back Child of Fire, Enforcer, Spreading the Disease. But the new album In Extremis, Light Years, which I think is off. Is it off The Verdict?
I think it's on The Verdict. Yeah.
Okay. Sick Death, Forest, back to back new ones. 2 off of Empire, Jet City Woman, Empire. I guess technically 2 off of Mindcrime, My Empty Room, which is more of an interlude, Into Eyes of a Stranger. And then they come back and we just go total old school. Deliverance, which I had no idea that was coming.
Yep.
Queen of the Reich, and then I was on record with you, Roads to Madness, probably my second favorite Queensryche song ever. So the interesting thing is, literally, if you don't count My Empty Room, 2 songs from Mindcrime. That's pretty. I don't know if the word is ballsy, but surprising. When Spreading the Disease, that was definitely a surprise. I mean, that's one of my favorite tracks on there, but you don't expect to get that over, maybe actually Mindcrime or Breaking the Silence or Believe in Love.
That's the one I wanted. I love I Don't Believe in Love, and it's like we didn't get it. So I wanted that one, and I wanted off the new record Lost in Sorrow. I was really surprised they didn't play Lost in Sorrow because I mean, we're going to dig into the record itself here in a little bit. But I mean, that song is so catchy. Like it would be such a great song live, and it doesn't have any crazy notes for Todd La Torre except for like 1 or 2 at the end. And I was really surprised that they didn't play it.
I would have taken that over probably the other La Torre stuff. I don't know. I just, when we get into it, I'll say more, but I just think the new album it's not even close.
Yeah.
When you compare it to the others that he did, I mean, it's just so good.
Robert, were there any songs that you didn't get that you were hoping to see?
Honestly, they could have played all of Mindcrime and I would have been stoked, but we only got the 2 songs, which I'm like, you know what? It's better than nothing. Actually, not really. I was kind of surprised they like dug deep into the catalog with like Enforcer and Child of Fire. I said, "Oh my gosh, we're going old school now. That's cool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like when bands do that, man. I know on Van Halen's last tour, they opened with Light Up the Sky, and they had Drop Dead Legs and stuff like that, and it was like nice. Like it's just always hearing just the hits gets kind of old, and so I was really glad that they. And they announced it right, as soon as they announced the tour too. They were like, "Hey, man, we're changing up the set list." And I mean, it's funny because like you hear bands say that. Like I'll never forget. I went to a Poison show, one of those. It was like Poison and Cinderella and Rat and stuff at Blossom Music Center out here at the amphitheater, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I heard this interview with Bret Michaels, like, yeah, we're totally changing up the set list." They changed out one damn song. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, what a bunch of bullshit.
Did they shove a Samantha 7 song down your throat too?
Actually, they did. That was one of the tours when CeCe did that. Yeah. So I'm like, shut up, man. Like, and it happens all the time. Bands are like, oh, we totally changed it up, and they don't swap out like 2 songs or something. But I mean, yeah, they really went back. I mean, The Warning and like I said, Roads to Madness. I mean, I don't. Would you consider Roads to Madness a deep cut, guys? What do you think?
I mean, wasn't that also from The Warning?
It's from The Warning. I think it's their second longest song too. Like if you can, Sweet Sister Mary and like Roads to Madness is close to 10, 11 minutes if they do the whole thing. I'm not sure if they cut that short a little bit, but yeah, I mean. I'm trying to remember. I kind of feel like they might have played that at the Roxino show like 6 years ago, but I'm not 100% positive on that.
I don't think I've ever seen that one live before.
No? Okay, well then, because we were at that same show, I know. You went to 2 there. I think I just went to 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, even stuff like Child of Fire, like you listen to it and you're like, dang, it's like, it's so simple, but like it just carries me back to that, we're older than Robert, obviously. It just carries me back to like, to getting that cassette, like literally getting that cassette in 1985 and like going, oh my God, these guys are like metal gods, and they just ride that riff out and then the vocals come in and it's just, I don't know, there's just something about Queensryche, and maybe I'm kind of on a high lately on them after seeing the show and the new album, but they're just a very unique band. There is no other band that sounds like them. They've been able to get this new singer and sort of do a perfect transition of getting some really good new stuff and playing all the old stuff. And wasn't that kind of the deal? Was that they wanted to play a lot of this old stuff, and Tate was kind of like didn't really sort of want to go there.
Yeah, he had started pushing back on it. Going, I mean, that's why it's weird that now he's out there on his own tours doing nothing but the old stuff.
Well, that's how it always kind of happens, You sort of just sort of fall back into. I mean,
Well, I mean, I think it's a smart business decision. I bet he doesn't really want to do that, but I think he knows that the only way he's going to pull an audience is by doing, Rage for Order and Empire and stuff. I mean,
right.
I'll be completely honest. Like I would go see him once. live just to hear his voice. I mean, it's cool. Like the show that you saw that I wasn't able to go to, Big Rock Hits or whatever. But when he announced the Rage for Order Empire thing, I'm like, oh, I'm going to that. Like, and now overseas he's doing Operation Mindcrime in its entirety. And man, you and I talked about it, Brian and Robert. If you want to jump in, if it's close, like, dude, I'll road trip for that. I mean, to see that record live in its entirety, I mean, holy shit. Especially the places he's playing, the tickets are like $30. I mean, why wouldn't you? But if he... Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. No, go for it.
That almost seems like a steal, like right there, like boom, $30. Yeah, thank you. I'll take that ticket.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean it's so inexpensive. I mean, you know, and it kind of goes like we were talking about Marty Friedman. When I saw him at the Grog Shop, the VIP ticket, and the VIP was you get to hang out with him on his tour bus before the show. He'll sign anything you want. You get guitar picks and all this other crap, and you just sit there and bullshit with him on his tour bus for as long as you want. It was $75. I was like, wow. Oh my God. Like, yeah. And so to see somebody like Jeff Tate for that price, especially playing that record is, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Brian, about, you know, changing singers and stuff like that. I mean, it was, it's hard to think of another band that has had such a successful transition. I mean, can you think of one, Robert? I mean, Brian, we were talking about it last night. What bands did we think of? I mean, if you could think of any, Robert, go for it. I mean, Brian, I know you said AC/DC, but it's like that was like a death. They had to make that change. But for a band that just decided to change, I mean, can you think of another band? It was like, I mean, Van Halen comes to mind for me, obviously, because, you know, they have 4 straight number ones with Sammy Hagar. But I mean, other than that, I can't think of very many bands that, you know, changed their lead singer and just kept putting out awesome stuff.
No, I can't either. I think Van Halen was the best one we came up with. To go back to the show real quick, my one downfall for sure was annoyance. Nothing from Rage for Order. Not one song. I was like, no. I was so mad. I thought for sure we'd get something, but, you know, we'd Walk in the Shadows or I don't know. Well, I probably wouldn't get anything like London, but just at least give us Walk in the Shadows, you know, or Whisper, Listen, something like that. But
yeah,
but we didn't get it, but that's okay.
That was an excellent way to crap on my question there. Yeah, Van Halen. Back to the show.
Yeah. I didn't want to forget. Well, all right. To go back to your point, Cale McLeish says, "I know Iron Maiden."
Yes.
So we kind of debated Iron Maiden and like, was Paul Di'Anno a big enough influence on them? You know, do we care that much about Paul Di'Anno's voice because we're so ingrained in Bruce Dickinson, I guess? And I'm not trying to downplay Paul Di'Anno. I'm just trying to be objective here.
Are you familiar with Iron Maiden very much, Robert?
Not their newer stuff. I'm more like, I say the older stuff. Like I have their first album on vinyl.
So the good stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Yeah. So you're familiar with it. So Paul Di'Anno was on the first 2. So be the self-titled and then Killers. What was the first Bruce record? Was it Peace of Mind? Or was there one before that? Number of the Beast was before that. That's right. Yeah, Cale. We talked about that too. Man, what do you think, Robert? Because I mean, Brian brings up a good point. Like, were they big enough on those first 2 records for it to really matter? Because people only really know the Bruce Dickinson stuff. They think of him as Iron Maiden and Paul Di'Anno. Oh, there's a different singer. Like, so what do you think? I don't know if that's comparable to Queensryche.
I'm not entirely sure, honestly. Because I mean, like, I'm trying to think back. I'm like, they not like it sounds the same, but it's like I don't think it made much of a difference.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just think like. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Okay, Cody Bennett, good to see you, man. He says Pink Floyd, maybe. I'm not familiar with Floyd, so you guys would have to speak to
they're
that.
Talking about like Sid Barrett, but you know he OD'd or whatever. But then they just kind of they split the stuff between Roger Waters and Gilmore. So
okay, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to think of a band that was really established and then made that swerve and just kept up the quality. I mean, audiences. Man, you know, I mean, even their audience, I think, picked up a little bit with Todd La Torre because they were playing small places at the end with Jeff Tate because those, man, after Promised Land, those Tate records sucked ass. I mean, I love Queensryche, but you can just take all that crap. Tribe and American Soldier and Mindcrime 2. What a travesty of justice that was.
Wait, you didn't like Mindcrime 2? What?
Oh, dude. You know, it's funny because we'll talk about this when we dig into Digital Noise Alliance here in a minute. But, you know, the whole thing behind that record was Michael Wilton dug out all of the old equipment from like the classic stuff, like when they originally did Mindcrime, so it had that sound. I'm like, it doesn't sound like that. But the new record, apparently, I read a review. It said he did that this time too, and it does sound like that. So I don't know if it's like the change in recording technology or something, but yeah, Mindcrime 2 is a piece of shit, man. And then oh god, it was it was so bad. And what was that? What was that last one like that they did that was just
Tribe or no?
No, that was God. What the hell was it? I mean, you can look up the discography, Brian, but it was that. Oh my god, it got so shitty. And I mean, here in the Now Frontier, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I remember listening to that album and like, you know, because I was like right after I discovered Queensryche with Empire, I'm like, bro, this is awesome. So I ran out, go like grab a bunch of stuff. What was really funny is that I was gonna buy Operation Mindcrime. I looked at the like the cover of it. I said, nah, this is really weird. I'm gonna go get something else. And then proceeded to take Here in the Now Frontier. I'm like, oh, that was a really dumb decision to me.
I was gonna say, hindsight being 2020, how dumb do you feel?
Yes, very.
Frequency Unknown is the album you're thinking of, John. I think.
What? No,
2013.
No, that's the first album Tate did with after he left the band, but it was under the Queensryche banner because that's the one that was FU.
Oh, okay. Nobody's in that. Okay,
yeah.
Other than him.
So it was the one before that one. Signs of Chaos or something Chaos.
Dedicated to Chaos.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
God, what a shit sandwich. Oh, dude, it was like it's unbelievable. Like I understand that, you know, bands might want to like expand their sound and do different things, but I mean, Jeff Tate just took that band in such a weird freaking direction, and it just wasn't good. I mean,
well, you know, they sort of burned out when Grudge came around and everything, and it really wasn't cool to play what they were doing. So that probably didn't help, you know. And then they probably just got tired of each other, and then, you know, Tate's ego got the better of him. I mean, there were plenty of bands, you know, pretty much petered out and were done, you know, but that's what's so awesome is they were able to bounce back here, and they still have two key players. I mean, Eddie Jackson's still in it, and so is Michael Wilton, you know, and when those two guitars start going, and him, and, you know, even if you don't like Mike Stone or whatever, like, you know, you can't tell a difference when those guitars are up there and playing in harmony, blasting away those classic tunes, you know.
Yep. Dude, I know I shouldn't be an idiot, but Mike Stone will forever piss me off. Just because of that story, you know.
At least you don't hold a grudge ever. That's what I like about you.
Dude, like, I mean, Robert, I don't know if you know this, but some of the lyrics in the Dream Theater tune "As I Am" are written about Mike Stone, that the other guitar player in Queensryche right now. Because when he was in the band back then, they were touring, and they tell the story in Rich Wilson's biography, Lifting Shadows, about they're on tour, and Mike Stone was trying to give John Petrucci guitar tips. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. It's like, what? Are you kidding me right now? Like, and I just remember, like, how cocky of a prick do you have to be to walk up to somebody who is obviously light years beyond you talent-wise and start trying to tell him what to do? It's like, oh my God. That would be like me walking up to Todd LaTorre and be like, you know, Todd, you should really like work on your warm-up technique and maybe a little bit of, you know, a bel canto here and there. Like, shut up, you hack. Like, what are you doing?
That would be like me walking up to you and telling you how to get drunk, you know? Like, really?
You are such an
Seriously?
asshole. You are such an asshole, man. And besides, who are you to talk? You spend like $2.50 on the most rock gut shit ever and mix it together. This is the most ghetto concoction ever. How in the hell could you make fun of me when you drink that sweat?
Hey, I spent like $40 on you last night and tolls. I spent $35 to park when we found out we could have parked 5 feet away for free.
Well, but at least we didn't take a risk getting towed, and I did cover the tickets, and I did cover the gas, and I covered tolls on the way home. So
no,
don't
you
be
didn't. I covered tolls on the way home.
Well, use my Easy Pass, you dick.
Oh, that was on. You pulled that out before I gave you a chance to give my credit card.
Okay, well, so like I just said, I picked. Man, you are.
I'm gonna go over the invoice when we're done here, just to make sure.
I bet you will. I bet you will, man. Kale McLeish, he says, I've heard firsthand that Jeff Tate is a very strange man and doesn't allow support bands to actually look him in the eye. Kale, good to see you again, man. It's been a while. I heard that too, but I've also heard that it's crap. So
yeah, that might have been like 20 years ago or something. I think he's melted some since then.
Yeah, I met him. He was doing it was full band, but he was doing an acoustic show in Kent out here a few years ago, and I met him after the show and got my picture taken and talked to him for a little bit. Got my picture taken with him. Sounds like, yeah, I just got my picture taken at the show and took off. Like, selfie, look where I'm at. No, but like when I met him and talked to him, he was really cool. And maybe, obviously I'm like a fan doing a meet and greet type of thing with him, but so maybe it's different. But I mean, he was cool. He didn't seem like he had an ego too much. He was pretty down to earth from what I could tell.
You were not allowed to touch his vest, though. He's very particular about that.
You could only touch the vest if you bought a bottle of Insania wine.
Right.
So, well, cool. So, Robert, I mean, how familiar are you with the new record, Digital Noise Alliance?
I'm kind of familiar.
Well, you're more than welcome to stay on because we kind of wanted to go through it. So you're more than welcome to stay on if you'd like, or you can jump off. The world is your oyster, as they say. So,
well, I only know a couple of songs like Behind the Walls. Honestly, Behind the Walls is one of my favorite from that album, just because it's like it's kind of like the Whisper for Rage for Order. Just the way it's like it's not a straight up like 4/4 like cut dry. It's like, what would you call it? Swung.
Yeah,
a bit.
It's funny you mentioned that because my very first note for that song says Rage for Order vibe on this one, so I kind of heard the same thing. Well, so we'll deep dive the record, but before you go, first of all, thanks for coming on and making some time, appreciate it. So I mean, give us your thoughts on the new record and the songs you like, and talk about it a little bit from your perspective.
My perspective. Hang on, I'm trying to remember which ones I actually like.
Isn't that weird? Like the new La Torre records have been really, really good, but I'm the same way. Like I don't remember like song titles. It's hard to remember.
Right. Like I mean, besides like Behind the Walls, I'm like anything else. I'm like, oh no, wasn't their like ballad for that album like Forests called? Wasn't it?
Forest, yeah.
Forest, yep.
Yeah, that was a good one. I like when like listening to the entire album, that one would just play. And I'm like, okay, it's a cool little ballad. And then I would like think nothing of it, and then I'd just go to the next song and said, oh, okay, we're just going.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I'm trying to like relate it somehow to Dream Theater, but I'm like, that's not gonna happen. But I don't know. It's just one of those things too, where it's just like I don't think there are many songs that I would skip on this album. Like all of them are pretty, just like rocking on like from like start to finish. And for some reason, their cover of Rebel Yell, I actually really like for some reason, but I don't know if that's just because it's like, I just like that song in general, or because like La Torre just singing, just somehow it just makes me like stop everything I'm doing, just listen, and I'm like, gosh, this guy's good.
See that's the track I could do without. I mean, I like the song, and I think it's a perfectly fine version of it. I just think I think because Queensryche is progressive and they're really precise, I think them doing the song it loses a little bit of that rock edge to it, I think. I think the precision takes a little something away from it. I mean, Brian, I think if I remember, you said you actually kind of like that cover, like Robert does.
No.
Okay.
Well.
No, there's nothing. There was nothing wrong with it. I just, it's them doing Rebel Yell. There was nothing. It was pretty stock into the. If they're going to do that, I wish they would have maybe metaled it up a little more or something. I don't know.
Okay,
but
that's fair.
All right.
It almost
cool.
just seems like a clear cut like version of Rebel Yell.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like to the T basically, which is cool. Hey.
Right. Well, it's like we were joking last night. Dream Theater's out there covering like Tenement Funster and Stargazer and all this stuff, and Queensryche has Rebel Yell. It's like, so
they're like, we want to have fun doing this. F like trying to learn all this crap.
exactly. Well, cool, Robert. Well, thanks for coming on, man. It was great to see you again, and feel free to jump on anytime, man.
Heck yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right, man.
Take
Take
care,
it
buddy.
easy. See you soon.
See you guys.
So there goes our good buddy Robert Husted. Appreciate him coming on. Sounds like he basically got the same set list that we did. So apparently they're not really changing it up from city to city, which I guess is kind of cool. Before we dig into the record here for a minute, where do you stand on that? Because I know Dream Theater isn't changing their set lists from city to city. I have to admit I prefer like the way Mike Portnoy was doing stuff, like where he would change it up all the time. I kind of like that because you don't know what you're going to get. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could, they're probably going to play the same songs from the new album, just to keep those fresh and those pretty tight. I mean, maybe they could rotate in some different things off of, maybe throw in a Don't Believe in Love or throw in a Mind Crime title song, or Breaking the Silence or something, or I don't know, another Rainy Night Without You. Maybe that's a little too far out there.
Right.
They're not going to bust out Della Brown. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. As much
Which
as
sucks.
actually, I know I love that song. I love the bass line on it.
I would totally go for some Della Brown, dude.
Oh, dude, that would be amazing. But I think this is a good mix they have. I just bummed there was nothing for Rage for Order, but it's interesting because the way the set sort of flows or doesn't flow is kind of how I feel about the album. And I'll just go ahead and start that right now, I guess.
Sure.
I'm not going to go right in the first track, but there are certain albums where you're like, I don't know that the songs flow together, but I don't care because they're all sort of unique and they all sort of stand on their own. It sounds like to me almost like if I'd gone and make a Spotify playlist, hey, I'm just going to pick a bunch of Queensryche tunes and I'm not going to really put them in any order. And it's like, man, these are all kind of a little bit different. And I like that about this album. There's plenty of influences from the old albums, but every song I think is different enough on its own and still maintains that Queensryche feel. And I think it's hard to do that, to sort of like sit back and go, I don't know that these songs fit together in order, but it's still a great album.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was, we had talked about, all right, we're going to talk about the, for tonight's episode, like a couple weeks ago, like, all right, well, we're going to talk about the concert. What else what are we going to do? And I was listening to the new record to kind of familiarize myself with it because I knew they were going to play a bunch of stuff from it. And I was like, man, this is a really good record. So I suggested to you, why don't we just do a quick deep dive on it, to cover the second half of the show. And you and I both said that, like, man, this is a really solid record. And I think you're spot on. I mean, there's a lot of varying kind of stuff on here, but not so varying that it veers away from that classic Queensryche sound. So, I mean, Forest is kind of, they do have a kind of a longer ballad on it, and In Extremis is like a straightforward kind of rocking song, and Lost in Sorrow kind of sounds like a single to me. And there's just so many different flavors here, but it's all under that umbrella of Queensryche, and the production is awesome. I mean, this record sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I know. It's like I like the other Todd La Torre records, but I hear, especially when you kind of go back to back with this one, you can really tell that they've kind of gotten into their sound. It's kind of like Dream Theater with once they got to Distance Over Time, you can kind of hear they're in their groove, with Mangini and stuff. And I kind of feel like it's like that with Queensryche with this record with Todd La Torre, because it's just this to me, I don't know how you feel. This to me stands up well against those classic albums up through Promised Land. I think this really stands on its own against those albums. What do you think?
I would say for sure. And like we said, from what we know of this, they supposedly all basically recorded it live together. This wasn't like guys in 12 different states, mailing files back and forth. And I guess Wilton, I think it was Michael Wilton, was very adamant about doing it this way. And I think just having La Torre in there, I think he's just a guy that when he gets his hands on a song and he's doing it for Queensryche, he's that fan that, that heard the warning back in '84 or that traded his buddy a tapes to get the original EP, and he's able to channel that and really put that stamp on it. And it's like, people can bitch, say, oh, he's just copying what the area. It's like, yeah, but who cares, man? I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, it's not copying when it's influenced and it still has a little bit of a modern feel. And I think his voice is starting to grow a little bit to where you're like, okay, it's not so dead on Tate anymore. There's a little bit of nuances in there. You could definitely see Tate singing a lot of this stuff, but I think he's coming to his own as a singer. But I just think his influence on, and I don't know if Wilton was more concentrated on that too, but the other thing I'll say real quick, and I'll probably repeat this 8 million times, but the previous albums, I'll say it this way: there is no guitar part other than maybe one song on here where it's just kind of on its own, and I'll use the term hung out to dry. They put guitar harmony on almost every single note, phrase, solo constantly. They're constantly trading solos, and then they'll do a harmony. One person will do a solo, then they'll do a harmony, then they'll go back to another solo, then they'll do a harmony. And it's just it's super progressive. I mean, it's very Dream Theater to me in the approach of these melodies and stuff, and the way the guitars are doing things, and that is simply not there on the previous albums, and you just have to grow into that, I think.
Yeah. And I think to your point, you mentioned this last night, we were driving home, and again, to go back to Distance Over Time, one of the reasons I think that record is so solid for Dream Theater is, to your point about, Digital Noise Alliance here, they got in a room and actually hacked it out together. It wasn't the file trading. And it sounds like a really simple concept, but for people that don't play an instrument and haven't been in a band and haven't gotten together with guys and like written songs together, it is a vast difference in terms of, the vibe. There's just an energy that comes out when you're actually standing in front of somebody else's amp, just, blasting your face off, or a drum kit or something. I mean, because I've done it both ways, and I hated doing the file trading thing. It felt so sterile. And I think, Digital Noise Alliance and Distance Over Time are two perfect examples of, how you can ramp up the quality of an album just by taking the time to actually get together and do it, quote unquote, the old way. And
well, you've done a ton of writing, and I never really have. I mean, isn't there almost a creative competition too, an energy like, oh my God, you came up with something great, so I better come up with something great here quickly, and you're kind of thinking quick on your feet, as opposed to like, all right, I got 4 hours to sit around and practice something, and then I'll email it over to you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the spontaneity of it, right?
Exactly, the spontaneity and like the immediacy. It creates an energy. I think back to I talked a couple episodes ago about the record I did with my band APG, and there's a couple songs on there that one of them, the second track, it's called Colorblind. I wrote that myself in like 20 minutes, and our guitar player John came in and just played this riff. It's the main riff of the song, and I was like, ooh, now go here. Oh, now it should go there. And you just feel it. And in that song, I think you can feel there's an energy to it, and it kind of a pacing, and it's something, like you said, you don't get if you're just someone sends you like a track, like a drum track or something, you're like, oh, what can I put over this? Like, as opposed to, because somebody might, there's no way to take that, and make a left turn, I guess is the way to phrase it. Because if someone writes a riff or a drum part and sends it to you, that's how it is. Whereas if you're in a room with somebody and you're like, ooh, do that. And they might not play it the same way, and it might take it to a different place you initially. So it's just, it's much more fluid. It's not as sterile, I think. So, and I think you can hear that on this record. I mean, it's, and the other thing I think that really stands out on this one is that, this is the first time, we've gotten Casey Grillo actually recording with the band. And, the last record was Todd LaTorre on drums. He, just did it in the studio. And I thought he did a really good job with the drums on that one. It was very Scott Rockenfield-esque. I mean, Scott Rockenfield is a very precise drummer, but he's got a certain style, and I thought LaTorre was good at it. But I thought Casey Grillo really nailed the Rockenfield vibe on this record, but added a little something to it. You know what I mean? Because Scott Rockenfield, there wasn't a lot of like flair. It was pretty much like pretty businesslike, I thought, for most of what he did. And Casey Grillo adds a little bit of flair to things. Stuff like, Tormentum, that crazy, middle part. Like he's doing all these weird things and, stuff in Forest that he's doing. And there's some really busy kind of almost, the drum parts I talk about really liking that Mike Portnoy does. And Mike Mangini, when it gets kind of busy and stuff like that in parts over a really simple beat, he does that a few times on this record. And I thought it really stood out. It's really, really cool. So, and the other thing I noticed, and I don't know if you caught this too, but we talked about how on the latest Dream Theater record, A View from the Top of the World, it sounded like they're finally getting smart and like writing to James's voice now. Like, and so that, he could do the new stuff without blowing himself up and hitting those super crazy high notes. And I noticed on this record, there wasn't nearly as many of the crazy high notes for Todd LaTorre. He kind of like picked and chose his spots with that. Did you notice that?
Well, I mean, anything is going to seem toned down to that solo album because, my God, he was like a demon in the stratosphere for that to some of it, where I thought it was like maybe just let's hold off just a tad. As much as I like that album, I thought it got almost a little bit grating at times how high he was. But yeah, on this it's definitely contained. I think I'll put it that way. You get some decent kind of screams. They're a little bit evil sounding, but it's nowhere near like as much as kind of the shriek that was on the solo album.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, dude, let's face it, the solo record was obviously written with the idea in mind, I'm never going to have to do this live.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, let's just unleash hell.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. But yeah, his voice sounds great on this, man. I think vocally, I'll just come around and say it, man. The choruses, they're bigger, they're catchier. There's more harmony on them. I don't know if he sings harmony on most of the stuff live, in the studio, and then they split the parts up, or if they had any backing tracks for harmony or whatever. I don't even care because it sounded good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just the choruses, I mean, they're just way more melodic and they're more memorable, and they're turning out anthems now, the other stuff was pretty decent with LaTorre, but there's nothing you could go like, man, this is like almost an anthem. And we have, I think, at least probably 3, if not 4 songs on here. To me would fit that category.
I would agree with that. That was we'll run through track by track here in a minute real quick, but that was one of my main 2 notes about this record was that I really liked the production on it. I mean, let's face it, Eddie Jackson has the best bass tone fucking ever. I mean, that I don't know what the hell that guy plays through, but he needs to sell his exact rig, because I mean, shit, I don't play bass very often, but if he put that out, man, I would buy that, because I'm like, I gotta sound like that. But the production was great, and as I completely agree with you, the choruses really stand out on this record, and they layered them well. The one thing I will say though is if you listen to the record in headphones, there's a lot of stuff going on in the choruses that they kind of buried in the mix. And I think some of it could be a little bigger and it would make it a little more lush, but it's hard to, I mean, that's so nitpicky because the choruses are really big on this one. And, I mean, starting out, let's just, go through it real quick. But I mean, In Extremis, I remember when they dropped that song, I was like, this kicks ass. And I was singing it. I kept going back to it. I was like, you said, like, use the perfect term, anthem. I kept going back to it, listening to it. I'm singing it like, man, say goodbye. I mean, it's, it's just, it's great, man. And I mean, it sounds like a classic Queensryche song, and, but it's got that really cool, like, kind of off time thing in the middle. And, it's got a few modern twists in it, and it's a great album opener. And I think the chorus is one of those, like you'll hear a chorus and like, it'll be good, but it'll go someplace you're not expecting, and you go, ooh, I wasn't expecting. This is one of those choruses that you don't mind having it now and again, that exactly where you think it's going to go, it goes.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it's cool. So.
As soon as I heard this, it reminded me of Queen of the Reich, like that riff. There's shades of it, and then you got some killer double bass drum, starting off. There's the one thing on this, if people that are big Maiden fans, that the melody is very similar, the first note or two, to Maiden's "Still Life," which is a classic tune off of "Peace of Mind." But yeah, and in my notes I just put "Let's talk guitar solos." My God, so,
right.
The one question, in your mind when you hear this first single, you're like, are they really back to kind of doing this prog, this sort of prog metal type playing on every song? And as we start going, the answer is yes, they are. It's not just this one. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's just such a great way to start the record. I remember when it came out, I texted Aiken and I said, man, this rocks. And he's like, oh, it's kind of stock, don't you think? I'm like, no, I mean, if by stock you mean a really good song, yeah. Like right. I was kind of surprised he didn't dig it like I did, but so I mean, moving on, chapter 2, idiot. Song 2, we have Chapters. My first note is something I mentioned before we got into an In Extremis. If again, listen to this one in headphones. This is a good example. Listen to the chorus. There's some interesting stuff going on. Like guitar parts that you can't hear unless you really got it kind of cranked up, and it's really cool, man. I really like the groove on this one. I really dig how the kick drum, it kind of keeps going as the chords ring out on top of the verses. Like, I'm always a big fan of, like, if you're ringing out a chord and the drums are
yeah.
I'm a big fan of that vibe. So I mean, this is another pretty rockin' tune. I really like this one.
Yeah, I've got. It's like a splashy mid-tempo number. You get that hi-hat going. This feels like something almost off the cutting room floor of if they needed something else to throw on Empire, but maybe they didn't totally finish it. Mm-hmm. It kind of has that feel to me. And there's also a very mid to late 90s Fates Warning feel. Todd really, he has a lot of in common with the singer Ray Adler to me. More than he does with Jeff Tate on this type of song. And they both kind of do this thing with what I call, it's like a dense melody harmony moments. The melody's in there, it's kind of dense, and I think this is what you're talking about, because those guitar things are in there, and this is one of the first examples of there are two separate solos, they're broken up with a dual guitar, and then you come back to a dual guitar at the end. Yeah. And it's just like, man, I mean, the guitars are just that's what makes this stuff. I mean, without those guitars doing that stuff, this album is like, okay, it's it's all right, it's decent, it's fine, or even if it just did it like 50% of the time, it's still probably a pretty solid album. But the way they just constantly are just working those things and getting you those new melodic patterns with that stuff, I just think it's just like gold.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, I'm gonna go back to what I said about this actually sounding like Operation Mindcrime and Empire and
Yep.
It's got that sound, and I think it's. I don't mind when bands change the sound of their production. It's cool. I mean, obviously nobody really goes way out on a limb, but I mean, having that kind of anchor to the past with just the presentation of the audio, it was so huge for me, because I'm like, yeah, now this is Queensryche. So I'm really glad that it sounds like that. Moving on to track 3, this has become one of my all-time favorite Queensryche songs, period. It's definitely my favorite song on the record, Lost in Sorrow. This is one I could easily hear slotting in beautifully on Empire. I love the chorus. It's like the chorus, I'm slipping into eternity, don't you know? Like the way he hits that stuff, and it kind of builds, and it doesn't go into the chorus. The first time is really awesome. I mean, it's, oh man, and at the end, this is where he hits a couple of those really sky high Latore notes, and it's just so well placed and just right in the perfect spot where it sounds awesome. And this song is just so catchy to me. When I was doing my when I was listening back to the record a bunch to kind of get into it for tonight's show, I just kept going back to this song over and over again. I'm like, man, this is good. I'm slipping into eternity, don't you know? That's such a great, and it's
Yep.
just, it's like this, the vibe of that is so good, man. I love this song.
Yeah, it's funny. My note on this one is that the intro, the beginning riff, it's there's some Reb Beach Winger going on there with that you know what I mean? Like it's totally there. But then we get into what you're talking about, the Mindcrime Empire thing, because Eddie Jackson's got that bass line pumping, you know, and the guitars are chugging away, and especially there's very similar to actually the song Empire with those guitar harmonies at the end of the chorus, you know, and like you're saying, it is a big giant anthem of a chorus. And then after that, there's a part where the guitars are doing those. Queensryche is just their masters. There's like kind of those squealing, melancholy, sad type bends, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the greatest example is probably the solo in Silent Lucidity, you know. But they're doing that off. They can pull that off on almost every song, and you're like, it still sounds good, you know.
Well,
and then once again, there's more killer guitar harmonies. Then you go back to the bridge, and you're like, they just pack all of this stuff in, and it's like, it's not too much. It just makes these songs what they are.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like when I was listening to the record, I started thinking, I was like, okay, you know, I remember when Chris DeGarmo left, and people were like, oh man, they're gonna suck without DeGarmo, and like these Torre albums, especially this one, it's like I find myself wondering. I was like, how much did that guy really write? Because he's not on this, and this sounds like you could have put this record out immediately after or before Empire, and it would be perfect. And you would think, okay, this normal, you know, a normal progression. And I mean, like you said, the guitar work is stellar, and the writing is great. I mean, it's just such a classic sound, and I really like it, man. So moving on, we have Sick Death. For me, I really like the riff in the beginning, that you know, the kind of the jog type of rhythm. I love guitar parts like that. Yet another really big chorus, which is, you know, pretty much everything on this album has that. I think this is, I don't know if you'd agree or not. To me, this is the most quote unquote metal song on the album, at least to my ears. I think this is kind of the most, you know, kind of classic metal sounding song that they have on this one, but I think it's cool. Again, it's something different. You know, it's not as progressive, at least to me, and it's just a really cool vibe, you know, up against the rest of the songs. What do you think?
Yeah, this one actually has almost even more of a nod to Queen of the Reich if you really kind of listen to that opening riff. Mm-hmm. And then you know, here comes the galloping, you know, beat with the drums, and there's a pretty serious Maiden vibe on this. You know, Todd's really channeling some inner Bruce Dickinson for sure. I have a note to see. It was after the solos, I guess. There's some really cool stuff with the drums, and there's like some keyboards or just like some atmospheric sounds in the background. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of go back into that chugging riff stuff that you're talking about that you like bands doing. Yep. And yeah, I mean that one definitely probably one of the heavier ones, and has the really super old school classic feel. Yep.
Well, moving on, we have the set list opener from last night's show, and I know you were a big fan of this. I have to admit, man, it was cool. Like, you're a pretty reserved dude, and you were really getting into the show last night. It was kind of fun. Like, I mean, it was, you know, because, you know, I'm always headbanging and air guitar and playing drums and stuff. I'm a goof like that, but It was awesome seeing you kind of really get into it. And I know it was kind of cool because as soon as they went into behind the walls, I even heard you over the noise. You're like, yeah, like, because I know you said that you really love this song, and you know, Robert mentioned it earlier, and I think you agreed. Like, this one definitely has a Rage for Order vibe on it, which is probably why you like it so much, because I know you're a really big fan of that album. Yep. This has some of Casey Grillo's best drumming on the record. I think I really like the drumming on it. The timing on the riff is really cool to me. It almost feels like they stopped a note early. You know, it sounds like, wasn't there supposed to be another note there? I really dig it. That's cool. You know, to your point on some other songs, I think the guitar solos on this are just fantastic. There's just a really cool driving rhythm throughout the song, and you know, Casey's doing some of the busy drumming that I really dig, and you know, the key change for the harmonized guitar solo, I'm always into that kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from? Like, I like when bands can kind of take you out of your comfort zone, but not do it in a way that's just stupid and weird. Like, you know, they're just trying to be weird for the sake of being weird. And you know, like I say, my favorite on the record is Lost in Sorrow, but I definitely love Behind the Walls. So talk a little bit about this song, since I think this is your favorite.
Actually, it might be my second favorite. It's hard to say, but yeah, I mean, I love the keyboards. They get those analog keys on. Obviously,
Yep.
they were just background. No one's playing them live, but they were there, and I just think it fills up the sound. I mean, a massive Rage for Order vibe. Like, there's bits of London, kind of some shades of Gonna Get Close to You, and I don't know, man. It's just a plodding, Neanderthal, kind of metal, thing that just sort of kind of builds and builds, and it's just super, just really, really hits you hard. And I did not think we would ever kind of get sort of back to this sort of a feel on any type of Queensryche. So the thing that, seeing that they can do something like this now really has me excited for, the next couple albums. If they hopefully can get, maybe crank out at least 2 more with Todd would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. This man. See, you said it might be your second favorite. Now I'm trying to figure out which the hell song would be your favorite. So you threw me for a loop there. So, I'm just not on the same page with you tonight. You're crapped on my question earlier. Now I'm like, hey, your favorite song? No, it's not. Like, well, moving on. We have Nocturnal Light. This is a song that really kind of grew on me, because when I listened to it the first couple times, I was like, yeah, okay. But then as I went through the album a few more times, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is good. It's kind of a slow, heavy groover, to me. And I really like the atmospheric sound effects they put in the verses. It does something interesting. So Robert Husted says Brian's favorite is the Rebel Yell cover.
That's the only one I listen to, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just making all this other stuff up. I just started writing things down.
Guitar solos are good. Oh, big choruses. Sounds classic.
You just write that on everything. No one would even know the difference, would they?
You gave it away earlier when you're like, I'm probably going to say this 800 times, but
Right.
it's because you only have 4 notes for the whole album.
Right.
You're just changing up the verbiage. But so yeah, what do you think about Nocturnal Light?
Yeah, I kind of have this as my sort of song. I do like the actual riff the guitar plays. This one just feels like grunge. This is the one song on the entire album where I think I went back and played it like 6 times to double check. I do not think there is actually even one note of guitar harmonies on it, and it's kind of cool that, because like I do want to give props because I was saying before how they're sort of all over the place on this. Nothing is exactly the same as before. So on this one, I think they just said, you know what, we like the way this is the way it is. Let's not pile on a bunch of stuff on this one. Yeah, it just kind of feels like a little bit grungy, and I like the groove, and I actually do like the riff. Cool.
Yeah, like I said, I think if I had to take or leave a song on the record, I think this might be it. Excuse me. I don't know. There's one coming up that I kind of might give that title to as well, but we're not there yet. So moving on, we have Out of the Black. For me, this is an interesting chorus. This is one of those kind of different moments. It's almost, I hate you. It's such a generic way to phrase it, but happy-ish. It's kind of like happier than the other stuff a little bit. In spots, I think it's kind of a different flavor. I think this one kind of stands out as like, oh, that's interesting. It kind of reminds me of something like One and Only or Hand on Heart from Empire, where it's kind of like that more upbeat kind of, type of sound. I really like one of the things that they do, to your point about the guitars, is like if you listen, like in the left ear, the guitar's doing like a low, just like a kind of power chord thing, and in the right ear, it's like a big, like up the neck, kind of like big, kind of high chords and stuff like that, and it makes a really cool balance. And I like that they didn't really mix it in the center of the mix, because I was like, man, did they really like pan those right and left? And I pulled out my one bud. I was like, okay, and then pulled out the other and put the other back in, and like, holy crap, yeah, they just have one solid on the left and one solid on the right, and it makes for a really cool sound. So I really like that about this song.
It's funny you said the word happy. I literally have in my notes here, this is the only time, as far as I know, that they actually go to sort of a major key during the course like that. I mean, it ends up going back to minor after that, but there actually is a major key moment there. It is kind of happier. Yeah, I have in here, this is another one, Eddie Jackson kind of drives it again, They get one of their signature thing, which is sort of those broken, clean guitar lines
Yes.
that support the chunkier riffs. Those things that were just so prevalent on Mind, Crime, and Empire. Those are the foundations of a lot of those songs. It wasn't the riffs. It was just those killer clean, broken guitar lines that supported all that really made those songs stand out. And you get a nice healthy dose of that on here.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's get to the song that might be the one I can do without here and there. Forest. I like it. To me, it's almost like if Silent Lucidity met The Bridge, from Promised Land. It's kind of like a combination of those two songs. I mean, it's very simple. It's very plaintive and catchy. So I really like it. A lot of emotion in this one. The one thing I will say though, like I thought that it could be spruced up a little bit. Like I was definitely hearing if they would add like some piano to it and kind of make that kind of a prominent part, honestly, because I thought that would make it a little bigger and more lush. I just thought it would fit the vibe of the song a little better. So yeah, this is a good song, but this one, it's cool. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I can't say I love it. But I mean, it's good. What do you think?
Well, I know last night Todd said it was about basically losing a parent, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Clear your throat. Yeah, there you go. I've got camera lag problems, and you've got throat problems.
Yeah, I think I'm losing my voice here. But this song is. He said it was about losing a parent and stuff. So you can relate to the emotion of it. Honestly, if this song was playing and I didn't know that this was Queensryche, I'd have no idea. This one to me doesn't even really sound like Todd. Doesn't really sound like Queensryche. It kind of sounds like a folk song. It's sort of like like you said, it's sort of an unfinished Silent Lucidity. Maybe give us a couple progressions or more twists, but maybe they just wanted a song that was sort of simple and acoustic based like this, and I can respect that.
Okay, yeah, like it. I think that's the best way to phrase it. Like if you didn't know it was Queensryche, God, my camera keeps freezing on the dumbest looks. Why is that always like when your camera freezes, you look like an asshole? Why can't it like freeze when you're like at a nice smile, like it's picture day? Goddamn computers.
It'd be freezing like almost all the time, wouldn't it?
Right. Well played. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like you wouldn't know like what band it is if there's like, hey, what band is this? And they played Forest for you. Like, no shit, really? Wow, okay. Moving on, that brings us to Realms. On this one, I really like how it goes into the verse, and I like the verse itself. It's really interesting. It's moody. It's atmospheric, but then all of a sudden, it's a straight rocker. I really like how they juxtapose those two things together. Again, another cool chorus on this one. So this is kind of a sleeper on the album for me. I think when you get later in records, you're kind of like, okay, you're ready for the album to get to its conclusion, I think sometimes. And this one I was like, oh, cool. I like it. So I think this is a good song, man. It's a solid rockin' tune. What do you think?
Yeah, this is ends up being, I think, my favorite on the album. It's close, but I think I'm going to put this there.
Wow,
I love
okay.
the eerie guitar harmonies to start this off.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty decent Rage for Order vibe on this one also. We were talking before. This has those lower chugging muted guitars, and it only kind of happens, I think, in the first two verses, and they're panning them left and right, and I love when they do that, when they're muted like that, and it's like, okay, Rage for Order, Neue Regel, that they do that to a T,
Mm-hmm.
The other song I'm thinking of, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that long breakdown where it's like ding ding,
yeah,
ding, ding, ding. It's bouncing back and forth, and they're doing a real subtle thing with that, just to start this out. And I mean, I don't know. This just feels like dead on. They're actually writing and playing this song in like 1986, 1987 era. I don't know. This one just felt so classic, with a decent mix of probably Rage to Empire, like a kind of a nice combo of all three, and still felt heavy.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most classic one that they had on here. I don't know. it really took me back to that time, but it still sounded modern and fresh, and it's still just ripped.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, this is definitely a really solid song, and you know, it's cool to me because I know like the tendency for a lot of bands is to kind of front load records, and I don't feel like they did that, and you know, on this album, and I think Realms is a perfect example of that because, you know, they just, you know, they stuck a really goddamn good song like 2 songs before the end of the record, which is, you don't see that a lot, so that's pretty cool. We got 2 more songs left. Technically 3, but we don't have to talk about Rebel Yell. But of the original material, we've got 2 songs left. So second to last, we have Hold On. I really like the chord selections and the clean parts of the verse. It's very kind of Promised Land-ish. It's kind of wonky and a little bit weird, and I like that. I really like that. Again, yet another big chorus. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with the album, I think you'll dig it just for the choruses alone. There's a lot of melody to dig into there. You know, I really liked hearing something weird, like, you know, like I just said, like Promised Land-ish, because, I mean, you just used the perfect word a minute ago when you said fresh, and it's like, I like how this record you can oh, that's kind of Rage for Order, that's kind of Mindcrime, well, that's kind of Empire, and you know, there are like 2 or 3 moments on here that sound like Promised Land, which is cool because I think that's a very, very unheralded record. That's honestly one that I would like to deep dive at some point because I just think that record does not get enough love. Like I know we're gonna have Paul Logue back on here at some point when we line up our schedules, and we're gonna do Empire with him. But I mean, I'd really like to dig into Promised Land because I think that's very underrated. And I really like the writing on it because it's that wonky sound, but not trying too hard. And I think this has a little bit of that feel to it in this song. So what are your thoughts on Hold On?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and I wish I'd kind of put Promised Land in here, but I'll piggyback off of that because what my notes basically say it starts with those dissonant guitars, and that's kind of what Promised Land was about. But you end up with probably the biggest massive 80s anthemic chorus on the whole album, right? You know, so you go from, you know, that juxtaposition of the 2 types of sounds, you know, in between to get there, you've got, once again, some of those broken singular clean lines, you know, thick shades of Another Rainy Night, you know, possibly type things going on there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, I love the chorus on this, man. This is a feel-good song.
Yeah, this is, again, you know, you don't usually see bands backloading albums these days, and this one definitely is another example of it. So very interesting, I thought. Closing the record, at least again, the original stuff, one of the longer Queensryche songs you'll ever see, Tormentum. And I mean, this is definitely their, there's definitely some Dream Theater moments in this one, which I thought was really cool. You know, it's this one's like heavy, it's kind of proggy. And, you know, it starts out like a straight up rocker, and then the middle is just weird. And I love it. You know, Casey Grillo's doing all that weird drum stuff, like the flams on the snare. And it's just, it's just such a left turn right in the middle of something that seems like a pretty straightforward song. And it's to me, I think this is the most Mindcrime-esque song on the record because of that. You know, it kind of reminds you of like Sweet Sister Mary, where there's that breakdown in the middle. That's a little more straightforward, I think, you know, with like the sound effects and all that kind of stuff. But to me, you know, I think this is very much in that vein. And for that reason, I really like this song. And it's kind of one of those, you know, we talked about Dream Theater songs that are long and you don't realize it. I think, you know, for a Queensryche song, I think this one's approaching 8 minutes. You don't realize that you're listening to an 8-minute Queensryche song. It's not like, you know, when Iron Maiden is like, hey, here's an 11-minute song. You're like, oh, Christ. Like, just get to the point. Like, stop it. Like, you could take, this song could be half this length. Like, this song does not do that. It's interesting throughout, and it rocks in parts. It's kooky in parts. It's a phenomenal album closer, I think. I really, really like this song.
So there is one caveat to this song, and you have to fully admit there's 50% Raining Blood and 50% Mr. Scary with the main guitar riffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they are there plain as day. You can't run, you cannot hide from it. So nobody even try. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But they are there. They're slamming you right in the face, and you're like, this is Rain and Blood. I mean, let's not even pretend.
Has any other podcast ever posited the fact that a Queensryche song sounds like both Slayer and Dokken at the same time?
No, but that one recurring guitar line that comes after it, I mean, that's straight out of Mr. Scary, which that's totally fine because, like you said, there's the very cool part, and I marked it down. It's 302. That killer breakdown, there's a spoken word about the Geneva Convention, I guess the rules around what's allowed for torture, which doesn't that always crack you up? Like, okay, we're going to make up rules about, war and torture.
Yeah.
Let's make sure everyone follows those.
Yeah.
It's like we just tried to bomb and kill your entire family, but we're not allowed to torture you. We have all these rules we wrote down.
Yeah. You can't do that, dude.
Yeah, no, that's illegal. But those like those evil chunky riffs, and there's at one point there's almost like gothic keyboard choiry sound, behind some of the stuff that's going on with the guitar and like those drums you're saying. And this is a freaky, scary way to sort of end an album. The last I don't know, 6 minutes are kind of really sort of chaotic, and it's cool though. I like the way they end it. Yeah,
this is an awesome album ender, I think, and it puts a nice cap on, I mean, what I think is definitely the strongest La Torre record, and I think again, a record that stands up against the classic stuff that everybody wants to hear. I mean, I think the set list last night proved that. The songs that they played, which four did they play? I know they played In Extremis and they played Behind the Walls. Like, what were the other two? I'm drawing a blank on.
They played Sick Death.
That's right.
And was there only three then?
Maybe there was. I thought it was four, but
so I have Behind the Wall, In Extremis, Sick Death, and Forest. Yeah, four.
Forest. Okay. Yeah. And no Lost in Sorrow.
So no Lost in Sorrows and no Realms. I was kind of bummed on that.
Yeah, but hey, there'll be other shows. Maybe we'll get that since they're doing deep cuts. Maybe they're considering that a deep cut, and we'll, if they do another leg of the tour, maybe we'll catch them somewhere, and we'll get that song. So that'll be cool. But yeah, dude, very 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 good album. It was a blast to dig into it because I liked it when I heard it before, but I didn't really go back to it a ton. And now that I have, I'm like, God, I'm gonna keep listening to this. When I'm putting in like Promised Land or Rage for Order or something like that, I'm gonna definitely put this one in too. So like you said, there's a lot of anthemic moments on this one, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, easily the best album, since going back to Promised Land. I don't even think there's like a point in debating that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I hope that it's always tricky, like trying to, especially when you have as many hits and classic albums as they have. It would be cool if they could come out and maybe play two sets. One set's all the new stuff and another set's all the hits, or maybe just keep mixing it like this. I wish we could get, and I don't know if his voice could stand up to that, but man, I would love to get. So we had 16 total songs, right? I think is what I got here, and that's counting My Empty Room, which whether or not you want to say that's a. I mean, it is a song, right? But it's a very small. But man, I'd love to just get a 22, 23, just an evening with or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, give me 25 songs of Queensryche, and give me the total best heavy hitters of the La Torre era, and just getting just all the hits and some deep dives.
Yep.
Would be awesome. Like, so I guess what I'm wanting is like 9 more songs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see an evening with, and it would be interesting, like do all the hits in the first set, and then pull out the crazy stuff for the second set, and then the encores you could do your Eyes of a Stranger or whatever. And although I gotta say, man, like one of the things I was gonna mention when we were talking about the show with Robert was, I kind of compared Todd La Torre to Miles Kennedy with Slash. And, I've seen him on all of the tours that he's done with Slash. And he's still hitting the notes, but you can tell now he's like picking his spots, like he's doing a low version here, or like not doing like a different melody that's lower there. And it's like, okay. And part of me gets a little bummed. I'm like, damn. Like, cause then, it's kind of like, going south, even if it's just a teeny bit, you're like, man, I miss when he did everything. And Todd La Torre, I mean, this is his 4th album with the band. Man, he didn't cheat anything. I mean, Eyes of a Stranger is always the one, and I get it. Like they played it in the middle of the show instead of the last song like they normally do, but still, man, those those incredibly high verses. No happy ending like they've always promised. Like
Yeah.
he does that, and the stuff after the bridge. I mean, he hits everything, and he sounds so damn good. So if I have to just get a regular Queensryche show instead of an evening with, and it means that he's going to keep sounding like this for a lot longer, I'll take a regular length show, man. It's like, and one last thing, and then we'll jump out of here. Like, but Todd LaTorre, it always amazes me that when he's hitting these high notes, he's bent over from the waist, like he's like doing a metal, like a scream, like oh, but he's hitting these high notes. I'm like, how are you doing a note that high? Because I mean, any other singer you see, pretty much when they do a high note, they gotta lean back and like really open everything up, and he's doing the opposite. Like he is scrunching himself into like a crouch. Like, how does he do that? I mean, that is so strange to me. What a delivery. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's just a great singer and a great addition to the band. And I think we talked about this. It's slightly off topic, but not really. So when we did the deep dive into Mindcrime, Eyes of a Stranger, like, is there any bigger metal anthem of all time at this point? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. Like, okay,
when you hear like that, Dr. Davis, like that, I mean,
Yeah.
the hairs on the back of your neck still just stand up because you know that like this just ridiculous riff is coming, and I just love that solo at the end where it's like down,
Yeah.
It's not even doing anything that complex, but it's so musically perfect for what it is, and it's like it builds to that point.
Yep.
I don't know. I think I easily have to put it in probably my top 3. Or worst top 5, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to place it on the list, but I will say this: like, I do agree with you because I have a lot of friends who are not Queensryche fans that absolutely love that song. They'll flat out say, they're like, man, I don't like Queensryche, but this song kicks ass. So there's that, and also, I mean, that song to me is like their Pull Me Under. I mean, it launched.
Yeah.
I mean, the album really wasn't doing much, and then that song came out and it just exploded, which got them their popularity. And then of course Empire comes along with Jet City Woman and Silently. It's just so without Eyes of a Stranger, I mean, who knows? I mean, they were talking about I've read some stuff where there was pretty dire circumstances for them at that point, doing that album. And so I mean, that's the song that kind of gave us Queensryche's career longevity. So I think to your point, yeah, I mean, I don't know where you would rank it on a list of metal anthems, quote unquote, but I mean, in terms of its importance to the band, just its importance to the band alone, it's huge. So I totally agree with you on that, man. It's a huge song.
Yeah, and it's just one of those when you hear, and I don't care if you've heard it 3 million times. I mean, there's stuff like Crazy Train. I just can't even hardly hear that song anymore.
Me too.
Now, Bark at the Moon, that's another story. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those songs, and I just started thinking about more and more, like whenever I know it's, because it's coming in the set at some point. I was kind of surprised they ended the main set with that, and then they came back and did the 3 classics, which was cool.
Yeah.
As I said on the way home, I thought it was like maybe slightly anticlimactic because there was some people that were like, I don't know what this Roads to Madness is. I'm going to get a jump on traffic. Not that there's any traffic to worry about where we were. It was kind of a small area, but
yeah.
But yeah, man, it's just one of those songs where it just like, I don't know, it just gets me every time.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. I could hear Eyes of a Stranger over and over and over again, and I mean, and that's coming from a record that I could listen to over and over and over again, and that's like the highlight. It's just, God, what a great song. You're not wrong. Just a great song. So, well, great show, man. It was definitely a blast hanging out with you last night, going to McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, and eating some really damn good funnel cake fries and catfish and your half-pound burger that was about the size of, I don't know, a pile of quarters.
So we were in a bar that the interior looked like basically a trailer from like 1972 or something. That was the weirdest. Like the bathroom was like there was like paneling in there, and then there was like the pull the curtain for if you're going to go in the toilet area. Like that was the weirdest. Like I can't even I wanted to take a picture. Not that I take too many pictures in the bathroom these days. I try to cut down on that, but I did want people to see. I did want people to see what that was. I was trying to describe it to Jill, and she's like, "Yeah, this sounds pretty." And then all the chicks working there had like 15 pounds of perfume on. Like I couldn't even breathe. It was just It was a strange setup. And then so real quick to finish up, we never established. So I was home, pulling into my garage. I think it was like 20 after 1. So what time did you get home? After 2, then I guess, huh?
Yeah, it was like 2:40 or 2:30 or something.
Okay. Yeah.
I was absolutely starving, so I did stop at a gas station right around the corner from where I live. That's 24 hours, and I grabbed some beef jerky.
Okay.
Because I'm like, dude, it was the point I was so hungry I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've got to eat something, and like I keep hard-boiled eggs in the fridge as a snack, and I'm like, if I break, as soon as the dogs hear one crack of the shell, they come running because they like to eat the yolk. I'm like, I am not waking my wife up at 2:45 in the morning. I will get castrated. So, right. But yeah, I mean, even with a quick stop, it was still like 2:40, I think, 2:40, 2:45.
Well, at least you didn't have to go to work. I'm going to be going to bed like right after this podcast, probably.
Yeah, as my background shows, I spent literally all day. I think I finally fell asleep. I was so amped up, I fell asleep at like 4:30, and I was back up at 8:30 to start watching the Masters. So, and I'm doing it again tomorrow.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely running on fumes, but it's going to be like that probably most of the weekend. So my buddy Circle J, eggs ASAP. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a story for another time. Eggs ASAP, Funyuns, and taquitos. Good Ooh. God. Oh yeah, that's a good story. I have to tell that sometime. Circle J is a legend. It's actually how he got his name, Circle J. But anyway. Nice. So, well, yeah, good hang last night, man. Good episode tonight. It was awesome talking about this record and digging into it with you. So, to all you guys checking the show out, once again, big thanks to our good friend Robert Husted. You're welcome on the show anytime, man. Chastity Crawley, good to see you. Kale McLeish, man, like I said, it's been a while. So awesome to have you hanging out. Cody Bennett, appreciate it. We are going to be right back here on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the CMSnetwork.com for our next episode of Talking Into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast on Thursday, April 20th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to click the like button, click the subscribe button, and smash the notification bell. And, guys, we appreciate you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Brian, go get some rest. And to the rest of you guys, as always, Carpe Diem.